I never thought something as simple as me coming out to my roommate would turn my whole living situation upside down. Like, one moment we're just two dudes sharing an apartment, watching bad TV and arguing over who ate whose leftovers, and then the next, he's suddenly walking around the place in nothing but his underwear, like it's some sort of silent protest or a punchline I'm missing. Okay, let me back up a bit, because this whole thing deserves some context before you start picturing some sitcom nonsense. My name's Alex, I'm 26, and I moved in with Matt almost a year ago. We met at work. He's this laid-back graphic designer with a dry sense of humor that I somehow found endlessly charming from day one. Honestly, I didn't expect much when we decided to split rent on that tiny two-bedroom near downtown, but living with him turned out better than I thought. Mostly because, well, things were simple. No drama, no weirdness, just two guys trying to keep this place from turning into a disaster zone. Now I'm gay. I'd known since high school, but coming out wasn't exactly a big show for me. Most of my close friends already knew, and I figured Matt would be chill about it too, but I'd never actually said the words out loud to him. I guess I was waiting for the right time, or maybe just feeling strange about changing the dynamic between us. Because, yeah, Matt was straight. Or so I thought. One evening, about 2 months ago, I just blurted it out. We were sitting on the couch after a long day, watching some random documentary on Netflix, and I felt this weird mixture of nerves and relief. "Hey, Matt, there's something I should probably tell you," I said, fumbling a little. Then I just said it plain, I'm gay. The thing is, Matt didn't say much. He just nodded, smiled a little, and tossed me a beer like it was no big deal. I wanted to feel relief, but instead, I started noticing little things. Like, he suddenly seemed more aware of how often I was around, and then there was this new habit he picked up that totally threw me off. He started sleeping in just his underwear. Not pajamas, not boxers, but whatever the bare minimum was. And it wasn't just a thing he did on hot nights. No, this became a pattern, every single night. I didn't know how to bring it up without sounding creepy, but man, it made the quiet apartment feel a lot less chill. That's when things became weird in that way, where you're waiting for what's next but also don't want to mess anything up. Because suddenly, it wasn't just about me coming out. It was like this silent message that I couldn't read but couldn't ignore either. And Matt, well, he became this puzzle I wanted to solve, except the pieces kept moving. So here I am, sitting on the edge of my bed, wondering how a simple conversation could turn into this strange game of signals and half smiles. And honestly, I'm more than a little curious about where this is going, even if I'm also trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next. Because sometimes, living with someone means seeing them in ways you never expected, like literally seeing them half-dressed at midnight, and realizing there's a whole story you haven't heard yet. So I decided the best way to figure this out was to act like it wasn't a big deal at all. Because, honestly, the last thing I wanted was for things to get awkward or, worse, for Matt to think I was making a fuss over nothing. I mean, he's my roommate, not some stranger from Tinder. But every time I caught a glimpse of him strolling around in those ridiculous tight briefs, part of me wondered if there was something he was trying to say without actually saying it. One night, a few days after I came out, I was making dinner, grilled chicken and a salad, if you must know, when Matt came out of his room just in his underwear and asked, "You want some help with that?" I blinked, spat out a bite of chicken, and said, I'm good, but thanks." He just smirked and said, "Suit yourself." Then he grabbed a beer and sat down at the table, still in his underwear, like it was the most normal thing, I'm not gonna lie. It made me nervous. I mean, I was in a t-shirt and sweatpants, and he looks like he's ready for a runway show. I caught myself staring a little too long, and when I realized it, I quickly looked away like a bonehead. After dinner, we ended up on the couch, and I tried to steer the conversation to safer ground. "So how was your day?" I asked, hoping to distract myself from the awkwardness. Matt shrugged. "Same old. Work please me, design deadlines everywhere. You?" "Pretty much the same. Though, I'm still getting used to this whole live with a roommate thing," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. He laughed, and the sound made me feel a little better. But then he got quiet, his eyes on me in this way that made me think I wasn't just talking to a roommate anymore. "Hey, Alex," he said, voice softer. "Thanks for telling me about, that whole coming out thing. I blinked. Thanks? For what? For trusting me. It means a lot. I wanted to say something clever or reassuring, but all I could do was nod. Yeah, well, you're my roommate. I figured you'd handle it like a champ. He smiled, then looked down at his hands. I guess I'm trying. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little weird for me. I could feel my heart speed up, and I wasn't sure why. Weird how? Matt hesitated, then said, like, I've never really thought about you being gay. I mean, I'm straight, obviously. But now that I know this about you, it's like I'm seeing you in a different light. I swallowed hard. Different light? Yeah, he said, looking up with those green eyes that always caught me off guard. Like, maybe I was wrong about some stuff. Maybe I haven't been as open as I thought. I laughed nervously. Okay, this is sounding like one of those deep roommate talks you see in movies. He shrugged, still smirking. Maybe. But I want to be honest with you, man. I'm not sure where this is going, but I'm willing to find out. That sentence stuck with me for days. After that night, the underwear thing didn't feel so random anymore. I started thinking maybe Matt was trying to figure himself out while figuring me out too. And maybe, just maybe, there was something beneath the surface I hadn't dared to consider. A week later, I got home late from work, like 11 p.m. late, and the place was dark except for the living room, where Matt was sitting on the couch, half wrapped in a blanket, still in those underwear. He looked up when I came in. Hey, he said quietly. Hey, I replied, hanging up my jacket. He patted the spot next to him, and without thinking, I sat down. We were quiet for a few minutes, just listening to the hum of the city outside our window, until he said, You ever feel like you're wearing a mask around people? Like, you show them one version of yourself, but inside there's something else? I nodded. All the time. He looked at me, eyes searching. I think I've been doing that for a while, not just with you, but with myself. I wanted to ask what he meant, but he didn't give me the chance. Instead, he shifted closer, and suddenly I was hyper-aware of how close we were. Look, I don't want to mess up our friendship or living situation, but I'm confused. You coming out kind of threw me. But it also made me realize I might be more open to things than I thought. I swallowed hard. Like what? He shrugged, scratching the back of his neck, suddenly looking sheepish. Maybe, like exploring? Maybe with you. My brain was scrambling. Was this really happening? Was my roommate, my best mate, saying he wanted to explore something with me? I wanted to say something brilliant or brave, but all I could do was smile nervously. I'm here, whenever you want to talk or figure things out. He smiled back, and for the first time since I moved in, the apartment felt like more than just a place where two guys split rent. It felt like the start of something new. Messy, confusing, but maybe worth it. And yeah, he kept sleeping in his underwear, but now it didn't feel awkward at all. It felt like a kind of invitation. I wasn't sure where this was going, but for once, I wasn't afraid to find out. After that night, things started shifting between us, but in a way that was subtle enough to keep the apartment from feeling like a soap opera. I mean, we were still roommates, still bickering over dishes and whose turn it was to take out the trash. But there was this new undercurrent, like a secret current we were both dipping our toes into. Matt didn't bring up the whole exploring thing again right away. Instead, we fell into a rhythm that felt oddly comfortable, like the night he invited me to watch a movie with him. No pants, same underwear, sprawled out on the couch with a bowl of popcorn between us. It wasn't close-sexual, not at first. It was just normal in the weirdest way. We settled on this terrible horror flick, the kind that was so bad it was funny. I was halfway through the popcorn when Matt suddenly reached over and nudged my hand with his. I looked down, expecting him to pull away, but he didn't. Instead, he squeezed gently, like he was testing the waters. I didn't pull back either. After the movie, we sat there in the quiet, the TV off. Our fingers were still touching, and I realized my heart was pounding louder than it had in a while. Matt looked at me, his expression open but nervous. Hey, Alex, he started, then stopped. I smiled, trying to be encouraging. Yeah? He took a breath. I don't want to rush into anything. I just want to know if you're comfortable with all this. That was the thing. I was comfortable. More than comfortable, actually. I'd spent so long hiding a part of myself, so many years pretending things were simpler than they were. And now, here was Matt, the guy I'd shared a tiny apartment with for almost a year, sitting next to me in his underwear, holding my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'm comfortable," I told him honestly. "I like this. I like you." His smile was shy, but it reached his eyes. "Good. Because I like you too." I'm just figuring out how to be honest about that. That night, we didn't cross any lines. No grand gestures or sudden kisses. Just a quiet understanding that the rules were changing, and we were okay with it. It felt like the start of something fragile but real. Over the next few weeks, the underwear thing became less about some weird silent signal, and more about Matt just being himself. He'd come out of his room without a shirt on, or with a loose tank top, and I caught myself appreciating how natural it all felt. There was a freedom to it, like shedding the armor we both wore around the world. One Saturday afternoon, we ended up at the park, just hanging out with a couple of beers and a frisbee. We were laughing and competing to catch the frisbee, and I realized how light everything felt with him. No pressure, no pretending, just two guys having fun. At one point, Matt tripped while trying to catch the frisbee and fell flat on his back, laughing so hard he was nearly crying. I sat beside him on the grass, still catching my breath from laughing, and I noticed how the sunlight hit his face. Something about that moment made me want to lean in closer, but I wasn't sure if he felt the same. Before I could think too much about it, Matt looked over and said, "You know, I never thought I'd be into this, liking a guy, but here we are." I smiled. "Yeah, here we are." He nudged me with his shoulder. "So, what now? Are we roommates, friends, something else?" I shrugged, but my heart was doing a different kind of shrug. "Whatever we want, I guess. No need to rush." He nodded, then went quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I'm scared. Like, what if this messes everything up? What if I'm just confused?" I reached out and took his hand again. "Hey, no one expects you to have all the answers. We'll figure it out together." He squeezed my hand back, and just like that, the tension eased a little. That evening, back at the apartment, we cooked dinner together, tacos, which is basically our go-to when we're too lazy to be creative. Matt was in his underwear again, humming as he chopped vegetables, and I caught myself smiling at how comfortable he seemed. After dinner, we settled on the couch, and this time, Matt didn't hesitate. He leaned over and kissed me, a slow, tentative kiss that felt like both a question and an answer all at once. I kissed him back, my heart racing, and when we pulled apart, we both laughed nervously. "Okay," Matt said, eyes bright. "That was nice." "Yeah," I agreed. "Really nice." From there, things started to become more real between us, more than just roommates or friends. There were awkward moments, sure, like trying to figure out when to tell friends or how to navigate the weirdness of sharing a bed for the first time without it turning into a disaster. But through it all, the underwear thing, it became our little inside joke, a symbol of how far we'd come from those first days of silence and uncertainty. One night, as we lay in bed, Matt turned to me and whispered, "Thanks for being patient with me." I smiled in the dark. Thanks for being brave enough to try. And in that moment, I realized this was just the beginning of something neither of us had expected, but both of us were ready to explore. Together. Those first few weeks after that night in bed were a strange mix of excitement and awkwardness. We were still figuring things out, what it meant to be more than roommates, how to balance the new parts of our relationship with the old routines that had become comfortable. It felt like walking a tightrope sometimes, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. One Saturday morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Matt humming in the kitchen. I rolled over, still half asleep, and watched him moving around in his usual underwear. No shirt, hair tousled like he'd just gotten out of bed himself. The way the sunlight hit his back made me want to crawl over and just stay there forever. I shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes. "Morning!" He grinned without looking up. "Morning! Coffee's on." I grabbed a mug and sat down at the small table. There was a quiet comfort to this moment, the kind you don't realize you need until it's there. We talked about nothing and everything. Upcoming work deadlines, a stupid joke Matt had heard from one of his colleagues, the new sandwich place that just opened a block away. It was easy. It was home. Later that day, we decided to go for a walk downtown. The city was buzzing with life. street musicians, vendors selling everything from handmade jewelry to questionable art, couples holding hands everywhere you looked. Matt kept nudging me with his elbow and shooting me these quick smiles that made my heart skip. We ended up at a small coffee shop and found a table outside. As we sipped our drinks, I noticed Matt getting a little quieter than usual. When I asked if something was on his mind, he hesitated, then said, "I've been thinking about telling my sister." I blinked. "Your sister?" "Yeah. She's pretty open-minded, and I think she'd want to know, but I'm nervous about how it'll go." I nodded, understanding that moment, that mix of fear and hope. "Do you want me there when you tell her?" He smiled, and it was one of those smiles that made me realize how much this all meant to him. "Yeah, if you're up for it." We spent the rest of the day planning how and when he'd tell her, which honestly felt almost like practicing for some big presentation. But when the night came, standing in his sister's living room, my heart pounding, Matt turned to me, took my hand, and said quietly, "Thanks for being here." She was great, actually. Warm, curious, and genuinely happy for him. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were questions and a few awkward pauses, but it felt like a step forward, a breaking down of walls we'd both been carrying for a long time. That night, walking back to the apartment, Matt slipped his hand into mine without thinking. The city lights felt softer, and for once, my nerves settled. It was just him and me, no masks, no pretenses. A few days later, we had a low-key dinner with some friends, a mix of people from work and college. I was nervous about how they'd react to the new us, but Matt was surprisingly relaxed, cracking jokes and even teasing me a little. It was like we were finally stepping into the world as a team, and honestly, it felt good. But of course, nothing worth having is ever totally smooth. One evening, a conversation turned awkward when Matt's ex-girlfriend called. Matt froze when I answered the phone, and I could see the hesitation in his eyes when he told her he was busy. Later, I asked if she was still in the picture, and Matt shook his head. "Not really, just old history, but it's complicated." I didn't press, but the moment stuck with me. It was a reminder that even as we moved forward, there were still shadows from the past to navigate. One night, after a long day at work, I found Matt sitting on the couch, eyes fixed on the TV, but clearly somewhere else. I sat down next to him and asked what was up. He sighed. "Just thinking about how much has changed. I'm happy, don't get me wrong. It's just scary sometimes." I nodded, understanding that feeling all too well. Change is scary, but it's also where the good stuff happens. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, thanks for being my anchor." We sat there in silence for a while, the kind that's comfortable because you don't have to fill it with words. As weeks turned to months, the underwear thing faded from being a symbol to just part of who Matt was. Relaxed, confident, and honest. And me? I was learning to be brave in new ways, to open up and trust again. One night, lying in bed, I realized that whatever came next, the uncertainties, the challenges, the triumphs, I wanted to face it all with him. Because this roommate, this unexpected partner in crime, had become so much more than just a guy the first shared an apartment with. He was home. And that honestly was worth all the awkward talks, nervous glances, and yes, even the underwear. A few months into this new chapter, I started noticing the little things that made all of it feel real. Matt reaching for my hand during late-night TV marathons, sharing headphones on the bus, or just catching each other's eyes and smiling across the room. Nothing flashy, no big declarations, just these quiet moments that slowly built something solid between us. One evening, we were sprawled on the couch, a half-empty pizza box between us, when Matt suddenly sat up and said, "Hey, I want to show you something." He disappeared into his room and came back holding a small box. He looked kind of nervous, which was weird because Matt was usually so chill. I raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" He shrugged, shifting on the couch like he was trying to find the right words. "It's just something I've had for a while. Thought maybe you should see it now." Curious, I took the box and opened it. Inside was a photo album, a little battered and worn, but full of pictures. Most were normal snapshots of Matt with friends and family, but then there were a few that caught me off guard. Photos of him at Pride events, some with other guys, smiling and looking genuinely happy. I looked up at him. "You never told me you'd been to Pride." He rubbed the back of his neck, a little embarrassed. I didn't really know how to bring it up. I guess I was scared you'd think I was jumping into something without thinking. I smiled, touched. "Matt, I'm not the one who's supposed to be scared here." He chuckled, and then his face softened. "I don't want to be scared anymore." Not with you. We spent the next hour flipping through the album, sharing stories I never knew about him. The first time he went to Pride, the friends he'd made, the struggles and the triumphs. It was like I was seeing a whole new side of Matt, the side he'd kept tucked away until now. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I lay there thinking about how far we'd come. From awkward roommate tension to sharing pieces of our past and slowly building a future, I realized I wasn't just falling for Matt anymore. I'd already fallen. A few days later, things got a little more complicated. Matt got a call from his boss, asking if he could work late on a big project. He looked stressed, pacing the apartment in his underwear, of course, and muttering about deadlines. I could tell he was overwhelmed, so I grabbed his hand. "Hey, you don't have to do this alone." He looked down at our hands, then back up at me. "Thanks, man. It means a lot." That night, after he left for work, I stayed up thinking about how much responsibility and pressure he was carrying. I realized that being there for him wasn't just about fun and late-night talks, but about supporting each other through the tough stuff too. When Matt finally got home around midnight, exhausted and ready to crash, I made us both some chamomile tea and sat with him in the quiet. He leaned into me, and I felt his breath slow as he relaxed for the first time all day. "Thanks for this," he whispered. "Anytime." I replied. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the shower running. I got up, still half asleep, and went to grab some breakfast. When Matt came out, towel wrapped around his waist, I caught a glimpse of his eyes. Tired but warm. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, just a lot on my plate." I reached out and brushed his damp hair back from his forehead. "We'll get through it. Together." That little moment felt like a promise. Not just to each other, but to ourselves. One weekend, we decided to escape the city for a bit and went hiking upstate. It was the first real trip we took together, and I was a mix of excited and nervous. What if the newness of the relationship didn't hold up outside the safety of the apartment? But from the moment we stepped onto the trail, all those doubts melted away. We laughed as we stumbled over roots, shared snacks on a rocky outcrop with a view of the valley below, and sat side by side under a canopy of trees, just breathing. At one point, Matt reached over and took my hand again. "I'm really glad we did this." "Me too," I squeezed his fingers. "Me too." That night, back at the cabin, we cooked dinner on a tiny stove, the smell of sizzling veggies filling the air. Afterwards, we sat by the window, watching the stars come out one by one. Matt leaned his head on my shoulder and said, "I'm scared sometimes, you know. Scared of what this means, where it goes." I kissed the top of his head. "We don't have to have it all figured out. Just take it one day at a time." He smiled against my skin, and I felt that slow, steady beat of something real growing between us. Back in the city, things kept moving forward. We navigated the ups and downs, late-night arguments about nothing, moments of pure joy, the awkwardness of meeting each other's friends and family, and even the occasional jealousy or insecurity. One night, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find Matt sitting on the couch, a little defeated. "What's up?" I asked. He sighed. "I got some bad feedback today. Made me wonder if I'm really cut out for all this." I sat down beside him and put an arm around his shoulder. "Hey, you're one of the most talented people I know. Don't let one rough day make you doubt that." He looked at me, eyes glassy. "Thanks, Alex. You always know what to say." That moment, more than anything, reminded me how much we needed each other. Not just for the good times, but for the tough ones too. I realized that what started as a roommate relationship had blossomed into something deeper. A partnership built on trust, honesty, and a willingness to be vulnerable. And yeah, Matt still walked around in his underwear sometimes. Though now, it felt less like a secret signal and more like him being unapologetically himself. As for me, I was just grateful to be along for the ride wherever it took us. One evening, a few months after that hiking trip, the air was warm, and Matt had his usual half-draped look, boxers, and an open button-up shirt, but it felt natural now, familiar, nothing awkward or tense. Just him being him. We hadn't talked much that night, just soaking in the quiet between us. I reached over and took his hand. It felt right, like the simplest, most honest thing I could do. He looked at me and smiled, this easy, real smile that made my chest tighten in the best way. "Alex," he said softly, "I've been thinking about how much has changed since you came out. Not just between us, but with me. I'm still figuring things out, and honestly, sometimes it's scary." I nodded, squeezing his hand. "Me too. But I don't think we have to have all the answers right now. Just whatever this is, I want to figure it out with you." He leaned his head on my shoulder, and I rested mine against his. For a while, it felt like the world outside stopped, the noise and chaos fading into the background. Just two people, quiet and steady. That night, lying in bed next to him, I realized how far we'd come. From awkward roommates tiptoeing around unspoken feelings, to partners who could be vulnerable and real without fear. The underwear thing? It had become a symbol of that journey, of shedding pretenses, of feeling free to be ourselves, however messy or uncertain that might be. We didn't need grand gestures or perfect moments. What mattered was this, the trust, the slow unfolding of something honest, and the choice to keep going, together. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a warmth that went beyond the comfort of the apartment or the familiarity of Matt's presence. It was the kind of warmth that comes from finding your person, not because everything's easy or perfect, but because you're willing to face the unknown side by side. And honestly, that was more than enough.